Good morning, business students. So I was reading an article in the BBC yesterday from the 2nd of April about Samsung and how their profits have jumped by 900%, which is not bad for shareholders. It made me think about the economics influences unit from theme 2, and also there's some links to other units as well. So there's 2 exam questions here for you. There's 2 12 markers. There's a page full of definitions, which I'm not going to read through because I'll cover when we do the questions, but you can copy those into your notes if you want to. You should already have notes for this unit. This comes towards the end of theme 2. And actually, with how much change is going on in the world at the moment, you need to be up to date with this unit, I think. Now, if we think about this from a MOPS perspective, here's the article. There's Dobby with his mop. We know the exam paper was written at probably the end of 2022, maybe mid 2023, depending on what they were doing. Now, this article's about Samsung and obviously the semiconductor industry, but if we think about one of their main competitors, Nvidia, so if we think about, maybe, I don't know, we'll go here, we'll say this is when the exam paper was written. Well, we've got steady growth in Nvidia, and then there's a massive shortage in computer chips, for example, because of getting over from COVID and all those sorts of things. Last year's research theme was on the car industry, and we talked extensively when researching that theme about the semiconductor shortages and how it's impacting the supply chain in cars. And when we had DHL do a talk at school, they talked about how without the computer chips, the cars just don't work. So people were stockpiling them, and that was obviously causing shortages and a huge spike in prices. We've also seen a rapid growth in AI that need powerful semiconductor chips. So look what's happened to their share price. So down here, it's obviously not zero, but the range is so big, and they're nearly up to, I don't know, $900 per share. Yeah? Okay? So you've got to think about how much this industry has changed. There's a percentage change in their share price. You have this information. You have the power to see the future in the exam hall. So you know, for example, if you get a question on Nvidia, that their share price was probably around about here when they wrote the exam paper. Now, we've got an external shock in this case study because of the Taiwanese earthquake, but also we've got rapid growth in technologies that are reliant on this. Nvidia are definitely one of those companies that has massively increased in value and importance around the world because of AI. Moving on. This is the definitions, which I'm not going to read through. You can pause it, copy it into your notes, and if you're my students, I will email you this PowerPoint so you can check your notes. You should already have these, let's face it. So here is the first 12 marker. So very quick plan. Obviously, likely impact is always, if we see this, is going to be the start of the hook of the earthquake on the semiconductor market. Now, we're not going to define earthquake at the beginning of our question. We are going to define the semiconductor market. Suppliers, manufacturers, logistics, sales, possibly that sort of thing, depending on what's in the case study. But looking through the unit, first of all, because remember we're focusing on that theme 2 unit, inflation, well, the earthquake could lead to temporary shortages. If there's temporary shortages, just imagine your supply and demand diagram, and suddenly there's a shortage of supply. If demand stays the same, then we're going to see an increase in price on that supply and demand diagram. Also, you need to think about big manufacturers like car industry, for example. They like to use just-in-time supply chains, but they won't use that for all of their components of a car. If there's any uncertainty, for example, with the availability of semiconductors, because they are essential for car manufacture, they might stockpile them. This might actually increase demand in the short term at the same time as there being less supply, therefore increasing prices. It's inflationary. We're thinking about exchange rates. If suddenly there was extra demand for semiconductors from South Korea because there's been an earthquake in Taiwan, this means there's excess demand for products being exported. If there's more demand for products being bought in the South Korean currency, then suddenly we might see an increase in exchange rates. Okay, so we can think about that logical chain there. Interest rates, well, if there's suddenly inflation in an economy, we might see interest rate adjustments. That's one of the tools that the Bank of England have used, for example, from our record low interest rates, encouraging people to borrow money, circular flow of income linked into GDP formula. Suddenly people were seeing huge inflationary pressures, they put interest rates up. This means people with mortgages or businesses with loans, those loans become more expensive. They've got less disposable income to spend on stuff. Less spending on stuff hopefully brings down inflation. Okay, so that's the link from interest rates to inflation. Be aware of that. Taxation, if governments are spending money on helping businesses recover from the earthquake, this money needs to come from somewhere. It's either from taxation or from borrowing. If suddenly there is less money in the economy because with the disruption of the earthquake, then the government will be receiving less taxation, and they still need to spend money to help get this company back on its feet, or these companies. There'll be a whole supply chain going on around the semiconductor industry. It's not just the one factory, it's all the people that supply them. Thinking about the business cycle, booms, busts, recession, those sorts of things, we could be thinking about how this shortage could make the downturn worse in certain countries. It could be that the increase in semiconductor prices, if you can't pass that on to consumers, this might actually negatively impact profitability, making it harder to recover. And we've got those economic uncertainties going on, and we're thinking about how are they going to cope with that. Does this mean stockpiling semiconductors? Does this mean pausing investment? Does this mean being brave and just investing in stuff anyway? So on to the 12 marker itself. Remember, our hook is this, of this, on this. Okay, so we know what our hook is most of the question. But we know what we need to start our answer off with, which is a defined, contextualized definition. So global semiconductor market is the sector that encompasses the worldwide production, distribution and sale of semiconductors. This gives us the foundation to talk about production, distribution and sale if we need to. Okay, so Taiwan earthquake may result in a tighter global chip supply. This is in the case study. Because Taiwan is a critical hub in the global semiconductor industry, any disruption caused by the earthquake leads to potential supply chain shortages. This tightening of global supply, quotation marks to bring the examiner's attention to the evidence, leading to increased scarcity of semiconductors, therefore positions Samsung to potentially increase its market share. They're part of the semiconductor market, and raise prices in response to strong demand, particularly in AI-related products. They could use this as an opportunity. However, it should be noted that they're not the only kid in the playground over this, are they? Yeah, so other companies like Nvidia could, I don't like the word exploit, but I think that's exactly what they would be doing if there was an opportunity to suddenly supply to people they didn't normally supply to. It's still very competitive. The earthquake's aftermath could cause a surge in semiconductor prices, is my point. Because the earthquake has affected a major production area, this leads to a reduced semiconductor output. The ongoing demand for AI technologies might lead to increased competition for limited resources, as in the chips, therefore resulting in the likelihood of price inflation within the semiconductor market. Quote, global memory chip prices are estimated to have risen by a fifth in the last year. The seismic event could push these prices higher. So it's not just here's the evidence, it's then an interpretation of the evidence, which is important, and it gives me another chain of argument. I've not highlighted the chains of argument in the however, but there are a couple. However, despite these concerns, it's important to consider that not all semiconductor production has been equally impacted. TSMC's report that the earthquake did not have a major impact on the operations, that the increased prices may not be as significant as some fear, but the fear of the uncertainty might lead to that stockpiling behaviour that I mentioned, which is going to increase prices, isn't it? Overall, we'll go back to the question quickly, we'll look at the hook. So it's this on this. Overall, the earthquake in Taiwan will probably have a significant effect on the semiconductor market because it disrupts the central production area. That's a bit of a repeat, but we have answered the question, okay, which is important because sometimes we accidentally answer the wrong one. Then we need to justify it. The disruption will lead to supply chain shortages in the future. Repeat, not great. Allowing companies like Samsung to capitalise on the market, another repeat. At the moment, so far, not a very good justification. However, the competitive edge might be short-lived if rivals swiftly rebuild or broaden their supply chains. Okay, so we've got this is answering the question, but this justification, because we can't say, however, if there wasn't an earthquake, there was. We can't go back in time and change history. So it's sort of justifying, this could disrupt it. This bit here is okay. Okay, it does say it disrupts it, but however, depends how quickly they rebuild. Could have been contextualized, but without repeating a point that we've already written, it's quite difficult with this limited case study. It's level 4, you decide where it is, but look at the level of contextualization. Right, moving on. So we've got likely reasons behind Samsung's strategic focus. So we can see this is theme 3 on AI technologies and its implication for the firm's future growth. This is a theme 3 unit. There's a whole unit on growth, and strategic focus will be linked to the first unit in theme 3. But analysing this from the perspective of the theme 2 unit, we would be looking at the same sort of thing. So we can look at those external influences that might influence this strategic focus. AI technologies, rapid growth, that's an external focus. But again, we're thinking about inflation. We've already talked about this in part. We can think about those exchange rates. It might be that, this is really good for the South Korean economy, for example. We can talk about South Korea because we're talking about Samsung in the question. So we're thinking about how this could not only help the South Korean economy, but also the brand identity of Samsung. They're an innovative company. So maybe all these AI features are going to help sell more Samsung phones, for example. It's not like they've mentioned one in the case study. If interest rates are low, then this could be a good opportunity to invest because interest rates are low. And if it's high, you need to decide if it's so important for the company, because even with high interest rates, if you don't invest and someone else does, look at the rapid growth in Nvidia's market share and share price. Yeah, they were in the right place at the right time with the right product, and their share price has gone up by 1,800%. Yeah, so interesting. So taxation, government spending, with all that money coming into the country, if Samsung are exporting loads of products, this is really good for GDP and the amount of taxation that they can get from this, which helps them spend money on other stuff. It might be that the South Korean government are very interested in investing in that ecosystem, their supply chain, to make sure that Samsung benefits, because if they grow and if they're prosperous, so will their supply chain. Always remember the supply chain. Business cycle booms and busts, and actually, it might be that other parts of the South Korean economy might be struggling. I don't know from this case study, but it could be that Samsung are helping support the economy through times of trouble because of the rapid growth in their products. Okay, and economic uncertainty. If we're thinking about mitigating the risk of this, then there's short to medium term strategies. If you're thinking about long term focus, that's why we're looking at MOPS. We need to think about how technology is disrupting markets at the moment. AI is relatively new, and it's starting to be in everything that we do. Okay, so back onto the question. At least you know what the MOPS is, because I forgot to do the transition for it. So we're on to our hook. So likely reasons. We're looking for the reasons behind Samsung's strategic focus on AI technologies and its link to their goal, which is future growth. Okay, so we're talking about future growth. This could be revenue, this could be units of Galaxy S24s, this could be loads of different things. We know what the hook is. It needs to be linked to the firm's future growth. Okay. Strategic focus refers to the company's plans to achieve long-term targets, e.g. growth. Growth could be measured in increased company size, market share, and profitability over time. I felt that I needed to define two things here. So we've got the strategy and we've got the growth. Now, this helps me to structure my answer. More importantly, at least the examiner is going to be going, this question is going to be this answer is going to be answering the question. Samsung's intensified focus on AI is aligned with the growth strategy to enhance core products. I've put them in brackets this time so you know where the marks are. By integrating AI into their leading products such as memory chips and smartphones application, Samsung can offer advanced features, thereby increasing the value proposition and demand for these products. This in turn facilitates market share expansion, growth aim, and revenue growth, hence why we defined it properly, underpinning the company's long-term financial health and competitive stature. That's an interesting term. Now, we've got three chains of argument there. I've put AN because it's going to be the bottom of level 4 probably, but remember we are looking for 5 chains of argument, and that can include your howevers. The case study reveals that Samsung's profits have surged due to the recovery of chip price. Remember recovery because during COVID it dipped, and increased demand for AI products, indicating successful early return to their strategic focus. So remember, the question is talking about strategic focus and growth, so we need to make sure that we're reflecting on both of them, I think, for this type of question. However, this approach requires substantial investment in R&D, which could strain financial resources and divert focus from other potential growth areas, especially if Nvidia make a more powerful and more popular AI chip before them. Okay, so it's saying if they over focus on one area and it doesn't work out for them, go careful. The strategic focus of AI places Samsung at the forefront of technological innovation, potentially securing its future market position. Okay, so we're back to our definition. AI technologies are becoming a differentiator in consumer electronics and semiconductors. By becoming a market leader in AI, Samsung is also preemptively adapting to future market trends where AI prevalence is likely to be a standard expectation. We're expecting AI in pretty much everything, aren't we? And they're a tech company. even their fridges will have AI in them very quickly. The case study indicates, nice link into the evidence, that the semiconductor division supported by AI is Samsung's largest revenue generator, demonstrating the critical role of AI in Samsung's current and future market position. Okay, so we've interpreted the data and we've linked it to how important the reason for the strategic focus is for their future growth. However, a singular focus on AI could lead to neglect of other emerging technologies or market shifts that might be equally or more significant, e.g., legislation in some countries might ban AI as they did in Italy when they banned ChatGPT. Now, this is not in the case study. We've done it in class, for example, and I'm not sure if the ban is still in place, but they banned it because they didn't like it. Okay, and they're not the only, I think there's 15 countries around the world that have banned it, but is this going to ban all AI? We shall see. Yeah, go and watch the Creator film, and let's hope it doesn't get like that. Overall, the reasons Samsung is focusing on AI technology is not merely a response to current market conditions, but a deliberate strategy, back to that strategic focus, to bolster its global standing and ensure sustained growth. Okay, that's sort of the answer. By focusing on AI, Samsung aligns with market trends that indicate a growing demand for smart technologies across various sectors and its diversified portfolio of products, brought in a bit more of our understanding of the poster on the wall in the classroom. This approach leads to potentially new revenue streams and reinforces Samsung's image as an innovator. Now, I think that is a bit of a repeat of what I've already written. That is a standard error that we would see. I'm going to justify and just repeat my argument. I think a better justification would have been to consider if they hadn't have invested in AI, and if we think about it, it's their largest generator of revenue at the moment. So, without AI being a core focus for Samsung, this part of their company portfolio would not have become the largest revenue generator, and this could significantly impact future sales if they hadn't invested in it, something like that. Okay, so we could have considered if they hadn't with this type of thing, because obviously they are focusing on it a lot. It doesn't mean they're not focusing on other things, but clearly it's their largest revenue generator. And think about how recent AI is. Maybe they were making more money from mobile phones before, or fridges, or nuclear reactors, or all the other stuff they're into. Hopefully that was useful. Very long video, but we've gone through that relatively complex theme 2 unit, and also touched upon some theme 3 and theme 1 stuff as well. I suppose theme 4 is globalization. Have fun, enjoy the sunshine.